Hey guys, for this video today, I want to revisit an old topic that, truth is, I did make a video for about a year and a half ago, and I found it the other night in one of my folders, and it's an older video. However, I sat down and I watched it, and there were a few things in it that I would like to talk about now that I did not include in that video. So instead of just uploading that old video, I figured I'd sit down and talk about it here tonight. So what I will be talking about in this video today is whether I think the Minnesota Wild should change their name to the North Stars and bring back the old North Stars identity that left the NHL when, of course, the North Stars moved to Dallas back in 1993, or whether I honestly feel that the Minnesota Wild should just keep their name. So this will just be an opinion video for me, but ever since the 2015-16 season when the Minnesota Wild hosted a Stadium Series game against the Chicago Blackhawks, I've noticed that this topic has definitely gained a little more, especially during that Stadium Series game around that time, a few seasons back. There was a lot of conversation about this that I noticed online, on chat forums and stuff, and I thought it was interesting to do a video on this. But anyways, during that Stadium Series weekend when Minnesota hosted that outdoor game against Chicago during the 2015-16 season, they had an alumni game where the Blackhawks alumni wore the regular red home jersey, while the North Stars and Wild alumni wore the old white Minnesota North Stars jersey with the green, gold, and black striping on it that the Minnesota North Stars wore from the early 80s all the way up until about 1991, when they, of course, switched to their black and white jerseys that had the Stars logo that they carried over when they relocated to Dallas for the 1993-94 season. So Minnesota had the North Stars and Wild alumni, if I remember correctly, wearing that jersey. But instead of having the crest logo on both shoulders like they had when the North Stars wore this jersey 30 plus years ago, all the way up until 1991, one of the North Stars logos on the shoulder was replaced with the Minnesota Wild's crest, or Bearhead crest. And I actually thought that was great for the alumni game. And there's also another jersey that I've seen circulating online over the years where it's the Minnesota North Stars late 80s green jersey, where instead of it having the Minnesota North Stars logo on the front, it has a Minnesota Wild crest or logo recolored like the North Stars jersey that it was on. Now, I can't remember if that was just a fan-made concept, or because I know it was never used for that alumni game during that Stadium Series game in the 2015-16 season, but I know that it has been talked about over the years, and there were quite a few people who liked it. And honestly, when I first saw it, I actually thought it was kind of neat. Do I ever think that it would be good as a third jersey? Well, it would be kind of neat, but I don't know. It would definitely be different, that's for damn sure. And I think a lot of North Stars fans would be, and older people who were alive when the North Stars were still in Minnesota, and back when Minnesota had the North Stars instead of the Wild, I mean, I bet it would bring back a lot of nostalgia for those folks. But the thing is that, I think that was just a concept jersey, and if I am incorrect on that, please correct me. I would really appreciate that. But anyways, this whole North Stars versus Wild name debate has been an interesting one. And for a very long time, truth is, I have felt that it would be awesome if Minnesota decided to rebrand as the North Stars and bring back the old N-Star logo and even potentially bring back some of the old jerseys, like the white one that I was talking about that earlier where they wore it in the Stadium Series alumni game from the 2015-16 season Stadium Series game in Minnesota. I mean, if they did it, and for a long time now, I've always felt that the North Stars name and logos could work. Now I know that the Dallas Stars are the continuation of that franchise. That franchise never folded. What happened was that franchise was relocated from Minnesota to where they've been in Dallas and just have been the Dallas Stars to this very day. And I understand that from what I know, the Dallas Stars are the ones who own that history, and so they should. They were originally the Minnesota North Stars that joined the National Hockey League back in 1967 as part of the Expansion 6. So yeah, Dallas, then the North Stars history is the Dallas Stars history, whether people like it or not, because they're still the same franchise. But at the same time, I think that if Minnesota did rebrand, I think it would be doable. I mean, it would make the history books very complicated, or a little bit complicated at least, but I do think it could work. Now, one of my arguments for the Wild rebranding back to the North Stars, or rebranding as the North Stars, and bringing back a Minnesota NHL team called the Minnesota North Stars, would be that, you know, if you look at Major League Baseball for decades, we've had the Boston Red Sox in Major League Baseball, and we've had the Chicago White Sox in baseball as well. I mean, if you can have Red Sox and White Sox, why can't you have North Stars and Stars in hockey? I think it could work. I mean, technically, I think it could work. Because I think, and I know that people would be able to tell the two apart. North Stars and Stars are different enough that fans can tell the two apart, eh? But I can also understand why the NHL and even the Minnesota Wild would not want to do it. And I will get into that later on. But with the Minnesota Wild, I mean, I've always felt that the North Stars uniforms have been vastly superior to anything the Minnesota Wild have ever brought out in terms of logos and uniforms since the day that franchise joined the National Hockey League almost 20 years ago. And I think a lot of people would agree with me, probably, I could be wrong, that the North Stars uniforms were better than basically anything that the Minnesota Wild have ever brought out since they've been a franchise. And, you know, Minnesota, the Wild have come out with a couple jerseys over the years that I felt were pretty good. I mean, number one, I've always liked their current away jersey since the day they unveiled it. Number two, I feel that Minnesota's Stadium Series jersey is probably my absolute favorite Stadium Series jersey of all time to date. Well, it's definitely up there. But when I think of Stadium Series jerseys, I love what the Minnesota Wild came up with. I felt that it was a very, very nice jersey where if they just had the same arm striping around the waist as well, it would be a perfect third jersey or even a perfect home jersey. And, you know, but I felt it was more than good enough to at least be a third jersey. And I was really disappointed when in Reebok's final season in the National Hockey League as the jersey producer back in the 2016-17 season, that Minnesota didn't just decide to make that a third jersey, retire the red one, and wear their green one with the script on it as their home jersey. That's what I really wanted Minnesota to do. And, besides Minnesota's current away jersey and that jersey, and truth is, growing up, I always did like the Minnesota Wild's red third jersey before the NHL switched to the Reebok Edge jerseys in the 07-08 season. As a kid, I really liked Minnesota's red jersey. And even in the early on in the Reebok era, my younger self didn't even mind their red home jersey at the time. I mean, do I like it now? As a home jersey, no. But as an alternate, I could live with it. Which I don't know how Minnesota managed to keep that as their home jersey for the entire time Reebok was the NHL's uniform manufacturer, but I guess that's just the way the cookie crumbled, eh? But I will say this, though. I think their new home jersey's much better, and I also really do feel that it's fantastic to see Minnesota wearing the dark green, or wearing forest green at home, because they're the only NHL team that does. And it gives them a unique look, as far as I'm concerned. But, with the Wild, though, when you look at the North Stars jerseys, in my opinion, they are so much better than even their Stadium Series jersey that the Wild brought out, their current away jersey even. Their home jersey, their new one's okay, but I don't love it. I've never loved the Minnesota Wild's uniforms. I agree with people who say that the Wild's main logo is really good, but I like the N-Star better, myself. And for a long time, I've felt that the name North Stars is a far superior name to the name Wild anyway. Minnesota is actually known as the North Star State, for Christ's sake. So the name North Stars is perfect for Minnesota. But on the other side of the coin, the original team called the North Stars have been the Dallas Stars since 1993. That franchise is now in Dallas. So for the North Stars name and uniforms to make a comeback, it would be very, very complicated. And the thing is, you'd have to do something. We'd have to see something happen that's similar to what happened in the NBA over the past 5 years or so, when the New Orleans Hornets gave their naming rights to the city of Charlotte so that the Charlotte Bobcats could rebrand as the Charlotte Hornets. And then after that, of course, the New Orleans team became the New Orleans Pelicans. And they've been the Pelicans ever since, and the Charlotte Bobcats were rebranded as the Charlotte Hornets. So Charlotte, North Carolina, I believe Charlotte's in North Carolina. Please correct me if I'm wrong on that, because I'm not fully sure. But ever since, of course, the Bobcats rebranded, the city of Charlotte has had a team called the Charlotte Hornets again. So that's also an example where I think that, if the NBA was willing to do this and allow this to happen, technically, in the NHL's case, they probably could have something worked out where the Minnesota Wild could rebrand as the Minnesota North Stars, and it would probably be okay. As I said earlier, I think the name North Stars is far better than the name Wild ever will be. And I'm sure most people would agree with me on that. Most people would probably agree with me on that. And it's understandable. When I think of the name Wild, I'm more likely to think of a minor league team or a major junior team, or maybe even an American Hockey League or an East Coast Hockey League team. Not an NHL franchise. But that's the way it's been since, of course, Minnesota got a chance to have an NHL team again back in the late 1990s when, of course, they built the XL Energy Center, which is where the Minnesota Wild have played ever since they've joined the NHL. But, with that whole complicated ordeal where the New Orleans Hornets worked out a deal with the Charlotte Bobcats so that they could rebrand as the Charlotte Hornets, and the New Orleans Hornets could rebrand as the New Orleans Pelicans. I mean, even though the history and everything behind the NBA history of the Hornets and all that, and franchise histories is complicated, they did make it happen. And also in the NHL's case, you wouldn't have two franchises rebranding, you would only have one. But on the other side of the coin, again, the thing is, the name Pelicans versus Hornets are two totally different names. Where if Minnesota were to rebrand, you would have North Stars and Stars. And you'd have both of those teams in the same division, the Central Division in the National Hockey League. I mean, on the baseball side of things, the Red Sox play in the American League East, while I know that for a fact that the Chicago White Sox play in the American League as well, but they don't play in the same division. They play in the American League Central Division. Where, of course, the other Chicago team, the Chicago Cubs, play in the National Leagues. Or plays in the National League, which they play in the Central Division of the National League, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, they do have a Red Sox and a White Sox in baseball, but they're also in different divisions. Where, do I think that a Minnesota North Stars team and a Dallas Stars team in the Central Division, do I think that it could work? Yes, I do. But I can understand maybe the NHL and the owners may be feeling that it might make it a little bit confusing. And I would understand that. I mean, I can appreciate that. But do I think the name North Stars is better than Wild? Absolutely. And as I said at the beginning of this video, I have felt for a long time that would be great. But this is now where I start to do the other side of the coin, because truth is, folks, I've had a change of heart over the past year or so. And this is also one major thing that I did not include in my last video that I made a year and a half ago. But truth is, folks, this is where I share my opinion as of now. I feel that the Minnesota Wild should just be left alone. That's my honest opinion. I mean, would I support the Wild if they did rebrand as the North Stars? Yes. Would I love to see it happen? Absolutely. Would I love to see the old N-Star logo make a comeback? Hell yes. I think it would be awesome. However, I think it's too late. And you know what? I think it would cost too much money, and you would have a complicated situation like they have in the NBA now with the Charlotte Hornets. The current ones. Or the Charlotte Hornets 2.0, whatever you want to call them. I mean, I can appreciate the NHL not wanting to go through that. I mean, it would cost a lot of money for the Minnesota Wild to rebrand in the first place. And, I think the name North Stars could work. But I've had a change of heart. I mean, I think that it'd be better if Minnesota just left the name Wild alone, even though I totally agree with all of you who say that the name North Stars is a superior name in every way, shape, and form. I agree. The only thing that the Minnesota Wild have going for them, in my opinion, is their brilliantly created, or their brilliant logo of the Wild, of the wilderness and the sun, that actually is a silhouette of a bear's head. I actually think that that is absolutely brilliant. And I think it is a very, very, very good and underrated logo. I mean, I still think the N-Star is a superior logo, but to say that the Wild's current logo isn't good, in my opinion, is something that I 100% disagree with, eh? But here's my reasons on why I think it's too late. I think that ship sailed long ago. I mean, for anybody wondering how long the Wild have now been in the National Hockey League, next year is going to mark 20 years that Wild team has existed for. Next year will be their 20th year in the National Hockey League. So basically what I'm trying to get at is that there's now an entire generation of kids born in Minnesota that know nothing but the Wild. Absolutely nothing. They've never seen the North Stars. They never saw the North Stars. They only know the Wild. That's it. So after 20 years, I feel that maybe that ship has sailed already. I think the ship sailed. I mean, yeah, the name North Stars would be great. It'd be so cool if the Wild rebranded. I mean, I'd love to see it, but the reason I think it'd be better if they just left the name alone and their identity alone now is because they've had it for 20 years, basically. They've had it for basically a whole generation. An entire generation of kids know nothing but the Wild. On top of that, I mean, it would cost them a lot of money to rebrand, I'm sure. And number three, you know, it kind of complicates the history, in my opinion. I mean, as I say that, I mean, I still think that they could rebrand and things, you know, I'm sure the average person would be able to know that, hey, there was an original Minnesota North Stars that relocated to Dallas and have been the Dallas Stars ever since. And then after they relocated to Dallas, Minnesota got a new franchise called the Wild. And then like 19 to 25 years into their existence, they decided to rebrand themselves as the North Stars, where they are a new Minnesota North Stars team. I mean, technically, I think it could work, but I can appreciate, I would totally understand why the NHL wouldn't want it. And truth is, I actually do kind of agree. Even though, as I've said many times in this video already, I love the name Minnesota North Stars. I think that there could be a North Stars and a Minnesota North Stars and a Dallas Stars. And I think it would probably be okay. But would the NHL necessarily want to have two teams that have such similar names? For that reason too, I mean, I could understand the NHL being very iffy on that too. I mean, I think it could work. I mean, there's Red Sox and White Sox in baseball, but, you know, North Stars and Stars. I mean, technically, I think it could work, but I wouldn't blame the NHL for not wanting that. And I think that, you know, after all these years, I think it's now a ship that's already long sailed. I mean, I don't like the name Wild myself. I don't love it, but I think it's okay. And once again, I mean, I think they've actually got a really good logo. But you know what I think I'd love to see the Minnesota Wild do? Actually, I'll get to that a little later on. But speaking of the Minnesota Wild, I mean, in the next 5 to 8 years from now, there's going to come a point where the Minnesota Wild have survived as an NHL franchise longer than the original North Stars ever did, or the Stars ever did in Minnesota. So, you know, once the Wild outlived the original North Stars time in Minnesota, you know, what, after all these years, you're going to just magically rebrand them and say, oh, we're going to be the North Stars again? I don't know. And once again, folks, I just want to make sure I'm clear on this, that you guys know where I stand on this. I mean, I'd love to see the Minnesota Wild rebrand and become the North Stars again, but I just feel that that ship has sailed a long, long time ago. And I think that whether we like the name or not, we will be stuck with the Minnesota Wild. But I will say this, though. I'd rather see us all stuck with the name Minnesota Wild than the city of Minnesota, or the city of St. Paul, Minnesota, because Minnesota's the state. Because there's the Twin Cities, there's Minneapolis and St. Paul's, or is it St. Paul or is it St. Paul's? I think it's St. Paul's, correct me if I'm wrong. But I know that the Minnesota Wild have played in St. Paul's. And they've been there since the day they skated on the ice in the NHL for the very first time. I mean, once again, I'd rather see the state of Minnesota have an NHL team to get behind than not have one at all. I'd rather them have a Minnesota Wild than no NHL team. Because that state is just absolutely in love with the game of hockey. And the fact that they had to lose the North Stars in the first place is such a shame looking back. But unfortunately, it happened. But thankfully, they really didn't have to wait that long to get a hockey team back. I mean, that's amazing. You know, they go from losing the North Stars to, and 7 years later, they've got a new team again. And a brand new arena to boot. I mean, I can't think of any other NHL city that has had the hell of losing a franchise and then getting a team back so quickly. I mean, that's amazing. But once again, folks, I mean, I'd rather see the state of Minnesota have a team, whether it's called the Wild or it's called the Boogers or the Tree Frogs or the Boogeymen or the Power Rangers or whatever the hell. I'm just making up random names just off the top of my head just for the hell of it. But I'd rather see the state of Minnesota have an NHL team to rally behind than no team at all. And really, the name Minnesota Wild, in my opinion, is really not all that bad. I used to think it sucked. I mean, is it the greatest name in the world? Absolutely not. In my opinion, hell no. North Stars is a way better name, but I think the name Minnesota Wild is perfectly fine. And after 2 decades of being in the National Hockey League, to the point where they've almost been an NHL team longer than the Stars ever were in Minnesota, I think it's a ship that's now sailed a long time ago. I mean, do I like saying that? Truth is, I don't. But it's the truth. That ship did sail a long time ago, and unfortunately, that franchise, the original North Stars team, didn't work out. It's too bad that they couldn't make the North Stars situation work in Minnesota and have Dallas come in as an expansion team. I mean, I think that Dallas has been a really good NHL city, in my personal opinion. And in fact, next season, they're even going to be hosting a Winter Classic. I mean, I think they deserve it. I mean, the Dallas Stars have been around for now 26 years. And that franchise has now been in Dallas, if I remember correctly, longer than they were in Minnesota. Maybe, hang on, because the North Stars joined the NHL in 67, so 67 to 87 is 20 years, plus 6. That's 26 years, and then 93. Okay, so now the Stars will be tied with Minnesota, or Dallas will be tied with Minnesota, for each city having the franchise for half of the franchise's life. Like the first half of the franchise's life was in Minnesota, and now this current half has been in Dallas, where in 2020, Dallas is finally going to pass Minnesota as the city that's had that franchise for the longest. And you know what? I mean, you could say what you want about the city of Dallas, but I think that Dallas has been a great spot for an NHL team. And you know what, folks? as much as it sucks that the North Stars had to move to Dallas and Dallas couldn't have just got a nice expansion franchise, you know what? Dallas has had the Stars since '93, and the best part of it all is that now Minnesota's not only got a team again, but they're playing in an arena that doesn't have to be, taken down and replaced with a new one. Or at least not right now. But, the Minnesota Wild, Minnesota finally had an NHL arena, a modernized or a modern day arena at the time when the Wild joined the NHL. And you know what, folks? I mean, I'm not going to talk about this for too much longer, but, the name North Stars is better than Wild. Yes, I feel that their uniforms throughout their history, as the North Stars uniforms have all been better than anything I've seen that the Wild have brought out, in my opinion. But as much as I would love to see a Minnesota North Stars in the NHL again, even though there is a Dallas Stars, the thing is, the Dallas Stars are the Minnesota North Stars. So Dallas has this history of originally being the North Stars, and now you're going to have a new team in Minnesota call themselves the North Stars. I mean, I could see there being a bit of an issue with that. I mean, would the Minnesota Wild have to pay the Stars for the rights and stuff? Probably. As I said earlier, it would be very expensive probably for the Wild to rebrand. And I'm sure, folks, that not all of you are going to agree with me on this video, and I totally understand. I don't expect everybody to agree with me on this. I mean, I think that technically you could have a North Stars and a Stars, but in my opinion now, I feel that not only has the Minnesota Wild been in the NHL for such a long time now that I think now that the ship has sailed a long time ago, but I also think that it would be a very, very big headache for the NHL. And on top of that, I think it would be very, very expensive for the Minnesota Wild to rebrand. And not only that, I mean, there's now basically a whole generation that knows nothing of the North Stars, and they only know the Wild. I mean, after all these years, what, you're going to rebrand now? I think, once again, I think that ship has unfortunately sailed a long time ago. And as I say that, I mean, I think their logo, the Wild's logo, is pretty damn good. In fact, their current home and away uniforms are the best home and away uniforms that the Wild have ever had up to this point. But there is one more thing that I do want to talk about before I wrap up this video, because I know I've been talking for just north of a half an hour now, eh? But you know what I think would be the best compromise of all? Would be if the Minnesota Wild got new uniforms that were just simply forest green, white, and gold. Same color scheme as the Green Bay Packers. I think that the dark green and gold is a beautiful color scheme, and I think it would be a wonderful, wonderful homage to the Minnesota North Stars without becoming the North Stars, without all the headaches of rebranding, without all the drama and all these big, massive debates. And besides, I think if the Wild decided to be green and gold instead of dark green, red, and beige on their home jersey and dark green, white, and red on their away jersey, I think that if they switched to forest green and gold full time, I think that would be a beautiful color scheme. And you know what? I actually think that there would actually be a chance that the Wild would maybe even be able to get permission from the Dallas Stars in the National Hockey League to have the Minnesota North Stars logo possibly as a shoulder patch on their home and away jerseys. I mean, I think it's too late for Minnesota to rebrand as the North Stars. I mean, do I think that maybe once in a blue moon, the Wild could maybe get special permission to wear North Stars throwbacks? I think it's possible, and I think a lot of people, myself included, would love to see that. But do I think that now the Wild should rebrand? No, I don't. I think it's too late. And you know what? As I said earlier, I'd rather see a Minnesota NHL team called the Wild than the state of Minnesota not having an NHL team at all. And really, after all these years, is the name Wild the greatest? In my opinion, absolutely not. But you know what? It could be worse. And as I said earlier, I mean, they could have called themselves the Boogers or the Boogeymen or the Wookiees. But no, they didn't. And that's a good thing, folks. I'm just kind of trying to be humorous here, and I know I'm failing miserably. But, you know, I'm just saying, you know, the name could be worse. You know, and as I've said it quite a few times now, I'd rather the state of Minnesota have an NHL team, whether it's called the Wild or the Voyageurs, which was the name they considered, or the Battlehawks, I think that was, or the Minnesota Fury or the Attack. You know, those names, in my opinion, were horrible ideas, except for Voyageurs. That would have been cool, but, you know, sometimes, yeah, names don't work out the way we want them to. Things don't work out the way we want them to. But sometimes it's better than the other side of the coin, where, in this case, a hockey mad state in the United States like Minnesota, you know, it's better for them to have a team than to not have one at all. I mean, it would be so bad if they still did not have a team after losing the North Stars. And thankfully, they only had to wait about 7 years to get a team back. I mean, that's, as much as it sucks what happened with the original North Stars team having to move to Dallas rather than them keep staying in Minnesota and Dallas getting an expansion team. You know what? I know I've said this multiple times too, but at least Minnesota has an NHL team. I mean, look at Quebec City. They've been waiting for what, 20 plus years? We're getting close to 25 years now that Quebec City's been waiting for a chance to have a Nordiques team on NHL ice again. And the truth is, it's very possible they may never get a chance again. I mean, I hope that's not the case, but you never know. But anyways, folks, after talking for 37 minutes, I know I've talked for a long time, but this was a video that I really wanted to do. And it's a really interesting debate for me. And one thing that I'm really surprised, looking back, I mean, if you would have asked me even 3 years ago, I would have said, no way, the Minnesota Wild should rebrand. But now, I've had a change of heart. For me, in my opinion, they should leave the Minnesota Wild alone. And besides maybe North Stars throwbacks once in a blue moon, which would be great, or switching to green and gold or dark green and gold full time like the Green Bay Packers do. I mean, I think the rebranding to the North Stars ship sailed a long time ago. And if you disagree with me on that, I totally understand. But, you know, it is what it is. And I just think it's too late now for the Wild to rebrand. And I think it'd just be a big headache now if they were even thinking about it. So, you know, it is what it is. And you know what? It could be much worse. I mean, at least Minnesota does have a team. I mean, unlike Quebec City. I mean, I hope that changes, but you never know. And the Nordiques may never see NHL ice again. Or, I mean, Quebec City may never see an NHL team again. You never know. But anyways, folks, after basically 39 to 40 minutes, I'm going to call this video a wrap now. I apologize if this video was a bit long for people's liking, but I just thought this was such an interesting debate to talk about, and I really wanted to share my 2 cents on this. This is a video topic that I've wanted to cover for a long time, and after seeing the old video a couple days ago in one of my folders, I've thought to myself, I mean, what a great idea to just sit down and make this a video. I mean, I thought that it would be great to do, and I've really enjoyed talking about this. But anyways, guys, not only am I going to call this a wrap, but whether you agree with me that it's too late to rebrand and that the Wild should be left alone, or you think they should rebrand, let me know what you think. I'd love to hear how you guys feel about it, because I always enjoy hearing your thoughts on it too. And it's always nice to hear what other people think on things like this that I find really interesting to talk about. But anyways, guys, I hope you all enjoyed this video. And of course, as always, you guys take care. And of course, as usual, bye for now.